After this past weekend, a lot of us are asking the same question. Will summer ever arrive? And if it does, will it be warm? I've certainly been looking ahead for any clues of a pattern change and some warmer air arriving. And I know my next guest has certainly been doing the same thing. David Phillips is the senior climatologist at Environment Canada, and I've reached him at his home in Barrie, Ontario. Hello, Dave. Good to see you. You know, it's often said here in Newfoundland and Labrador, you cannot take your winter tires off until after May 24th weekend, and this year it proves it. Some parts of the province have really been walloped. We had back-to-back 70-centimeter storms in early April in central Newfoundland. That really set the stage for spring here. And then, of course, the icing on top, 50 centimeters in parts of Labrador this past weekend, snow in St. John's. What have you thought about our spring here in Newfoundland and Labrador?
Well, Ryan, nice to be with you. And, you know, this past week I talked to a lot of Canadians, and some were trying to complain about the Victoria long weekend. I said, listen, you've got nothing to complain about. Think about the poor people in Newfoundland and Labrador, what they're seeing. And this isn't sort of the dead of winter. This is the May 2-4 weekend when we often think about summer. So it shut people up when they heard about what you had. But certainly, Ryan, it's been a tough spring. We look at spring as March, April, May. It's been certainly more winter-like than summer-like, and it's been the persistence of this spring. It's just been cooler. It's been wetter. I mean, particularly May. I mean, you accept in Newfoundland and Labrador that March, April is going to be maybe cruel and tough, but my gosh, you want some break in May. In May, we've seen temperatures on the island about 3 to 5 degrees colder than normal. You can count the number of days above normal on your one hand, on your fingers.
And Dave, we only have to look back to the summer of 2011, most recently the summer of 2015, record-breaking cold, both blocking patterns those summers, of course, blocking highs over the North Atlantic. That's bad news for us. Northerlies, easterlies dominate, hold that summer warmth to the south. We want that nice big Bermuda high dominating, stretching up towards Atlantic Canada with warm west-southwest winds to push that pack ice out and bring some warmth. What are you seeing signal-wise, Dave, over the next 2 or 3 months?
Well, you're right about that. You know, pray, beg, hope for the Bermuda high. Yeah. Maybe some of that Trump air to come northward and drive all that ice out and warm up the temperatures. And you know, there's certainly a hint of that. I clearly not for the rest of May. I mean, it's looks like it's going to be as it's been. But we think that certainly when we get into June, Ryan, when you look at the averages, June is always about 5 degrees on average warmer than May, and July is 5 degrees warmer than June. So everything's relative. And really, I guess being facetious, I'll say that, hey, the summer will be somewhere between what it was in the 2014 and 2015, where you went from one of the warmest on record to one of the coldest. But also remember that summer of 2015. I mean, it was a washout in July. I mean, people had given up.
Yeah.
But then you got August, and it turned out to be just the opposite of what July is. So, hey, maybe in Newfoundland, Labrador, you have to be a little bit more patient for the weather. Now, we think this summer ahead, there's some good news. We think that the models right now, and I wouldn't bet the family farm or the fishing fleet on it, maybe a few loonies, because we can certainly change our mind. But right now, the models seem to suggest that it will be for June, July, August. In most of Labrador and western central Newfoundland, we think it will be warmer than normal. And maybe near normal along the outer coast. But generally, certainly far better than what you've had to put up with this spring. So, hey, that's where the models seem to be right now. We see that there will be that southerly air and eventually kick that cold North Atlantic stuff out of the way. And then maybe Newfoundlanders and Labradorians will be complaining about the heat and humidity.
Yeah. It doesn't take long. It's only a couple of days before you hear the grumbling about the heat and humidity, and we always bank on a nice fall here. Before I let you go, David, let me ask you this. You've been looking at weather trends and weather stories for a long time. Do you ever see weather and say to yourself, wow, I didn't see that coming?
Oh, you know, often I've been in this business maybe a half a century, and I still shake my head about the weather in this country. It attacks us from every direction. I've seen a lot of storms, a lot of weird, wild, and wacky weather, but boy, there are always things that that surprise me. It's probably why, Ryan, I get invited to a lot of wine and cheese parties, because I can regale them about all the misery that that they've had to put up with. But hey, I love doing what I do, as you do too, because my gosh, we talk about the weather in this country, and that's like for a Canadian asking a Canadian to breathe to talk about the weather.
So true. Always a pleasure to talk to you, Dave Phillips, senior climatologist from Environment Canada. Always a pleasure. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you, Ryan. Bye-bye now.
Take care.